For having me here today. I know I see a lot of familiar faces out there, and we started this morning outside and had a great level 2 roadside demonstration. A little bit closer, gotcha. Had a great level 2 roadside demonstration and hopefully answered some questions and help industry get a better understanding of what our commercial vehicle enforcement troopers do on a day-to-day basis to improve safety on our road out there, and hopefully instill that safety awareness within your company to prevent those unsafe trucks from leaving the yard. That way those inspections are clean inspections that our troopers are making out there. As Michael was saying, if we can prevent the obstacles ahead of us out there, we can prevent some of the crashes that we're seeing. Everybody makes it home safe at the end of the day. My presentation here today is going to be over the 2025 first quarter stats. I'm going to delve into some of what Michael was talking about, and we'll look at what we're seeing. This is going to be from DPS stats only. This is not what took place inside the city of Odessa, inside the city of Midland. This is just what our troopers are working out there in the Permian Basin. Many of you have seen some of my presentations before. They know that I always start that presentation with the title, "It Starts With You." And I mean that wholeheartedly. It does start with you. We cannot ticket our way out of this problem. Our troopers write a lot of tickets. We bring in troopers from across the state to supplement the area of the Permian Basin on a routine basis. And during those times, a lot of tickets are issued, and we still have a lot of crashes. So at the end of the day, it does take the community, it does take all the stakeholders in the basin to improve our roadway safety. Because at the end of the day, we want everybody in here to make it home safe. We want everybody out there to make it home safe. Okay, we'll take a look at this first video. Got a little example of aggressive driving, something we're seeing out here on a regular basis. You'll see. And I hit on aggressive driving because statistics show that the vast majority of the crashes that occur in the Permian Basin are related to driver behavior. I know roadways get blamed a lot. Hey, the roads are narrow, commercial motor vehicles get blamed a lot, but at the end of the day, the driving factor in crashes is driver behavior and the decisions drivers make. Take a look at another video. He's coming up on a construction zone. He's pulling a trailer behind that. He was on the phone. They know he was on the phone because that company has an inward-facing camera. So narrowly escaped, causing a major crash right there. Of course, that's going to be our TxDOT worker who's out there in that construction zone slowing down traffic. Another big one are intersections. Intersections continue to play a huge role in our crashes. Fail to obey traffic signs, fail to yield the right-of-way are the two main driving factors. Take a look at the left side of the screen. You'll see a vehicle go right through the intersection. And this is why defensive driving is so important. There's a stop sign that car should have stopped at. In this case, it did not result in a collision. Another example of failing to yield the right-of-way. And these are all videos I get from companies that companies send me. So I use these as education tools, and I appreciate when the companies do send those. So in that video right there, if you look up at the top right, you'll see the speed of that truck. That truck never slowed down as that vehicle was creeping out. And we'll talk about what we can do to prevent crashes. The truck in this case was not at fault, but when you see a vehicle creeping out, can you slow down? Absolutely. Can you drive defensively? Absolutely. And let's try to avoid that crash. So here's some of our first quarter stats. This is for the 17 counties of the Permian Basin. If you look over here to the right, you'll see, and to the left, excuse me, those counties are the 17 counties that are underneath my area of responsibility for the station and public information duties. Those overlapped a couple of TxDOT districts, both the Lubbock District, Abilene, and the Odessa District. If you look at those numbers, we saw an uptick, like Michael was saying, for the year of the 2025. 2025, we had a pretty rough start. Looking over here, you'll see the total fatal traffic crashes was 36 for January through March. The average fatal crash every 2.5 days. Total death was 39. The average age of the deceased was 40 years old. And let me hit on that real quick. That is not young drivers making mistakes out here. When you have an average age of 40 years old, you've been driving for what, 20 years, 25 years? That number has not changed since I've been in this position keeping these stats. The age is always 38, 39, or 40, and that has remained unchanged since 2021. Males continue to dominate the number of deceased. Now, the oil industry is a male-dominated industry, right? You look out across this audience here, vast majority are here today are males. And if you ran the average age, it would probably be about 40 years old again. Now, going forward with that, at 40 years old, as a male, you have a lot to lose, right? You have a lot of people that depend on you. Most guys are what, married? You have loved ones, you have a mortgage, you have kids you're trying to put through college, you have a lot going on, and that's who's dying on our roadways. Working age men in their 40s. That's who dominates the oil industry out here, and that's who's dying on the roadways. So I drive that home because when I go places, folks say, you can't believe how bad people drive on County Road 300 by Mentone. Well, who's driving out there? Is it soccer mom with the 3 kids and the little Frenchie and the latte? No, it's not soccer mom with the 3 kids and little Frenchie and the latte driving on County Road 300 near Mentone. It's the oil industry driving out there. We've got to hold ourselves accountable. And like I said before, it starts with you. We do need everybody's help. And I know you here today have a buy-in in the safety. That's why you're here. But we've got to drive that message home to the companies that we work with. The subs of the subs, as they say. That's where a lot of the problems lie. The subs of the subs, the mom and pops. Who are we subcontracting this stuff to? We've got to drive the safety message home. If you look over here, the deadliest month was 16. March hit us hard this year. March saw a huge increase. Last year, for 2024, we didn't have more than 10 in a month that DPS worked. March had 16. Peak crash time windows continue to be rush hour. So 5A to 9A, 10 fatal crashes, 4P to 8P, 12 fatal crashes. 22 of the 36 fatal crashes are turned in that 8-hour time block. So everybody was on the road at that time this morning, right? That's how we got here. And everybody's gonna be on the road at that time later today. That's how you're gonna get home, that's how you're gonna pick up the kids from school, that's how you're gonna do everything you've gotta do to make your household function and to see your loved ones at the end of the day. So we have to drive home this message of safety because those are the 2 peak times when our crash window is. So we'll break down the crashes a little further. Excuse me, I thought I skipped a slide. We'll look at seatbelt deaths. Of those crashes, 12 were attributed to seatbelts. Now, we're coming up on the Click It and Ticket campaign that we have every May. We'll have a meeting here, I believe it's going to be May 21st to 22nd in Midland with our partners at TxDOT, Midland Police Department, Odessa Police Department, and some of the other agencies. Every year we drive home the message of Click It or Ticket, and we're serious about this. You know, seatbelts have been the law since the late 80s. Now, I'm 44 years old. I remember driving around in the back seat of my parents' car with no seatbelt on in the early 80s, but that's not been the case for a long time, and yet we still have problems with seatbelts. The group's not wearing seatbelts, 18 to 25. That's that young age group that think they're gonna live forever. The over 55 crowd, we see it again. Now, the over 55 crowd, it's kind of hard to get a judge on that, and I think, from my personal opinion, I think the over 55 crowd seatbelt use kind of drops off because their kids are grown. They're not telling their kids in the car to put their seatbelts on anymore. The kids are out of the house by that age most of the time. And the last one are energy sector employees. That's a big one. Energy sector employees need to wear their seatbelts. I encourage your company to have a policy that encourages seatbelt use or requires seatbelt use at all times. Not just when they're on the blacktop, but when they're also out there on those caliche roads. Because many times that's where we see the crash occur. They run around on the caliche road, and I hear it. I mean, I understand. I'm out there opening cattle guards. I've got to go through the lease gate. I've got to check the well. I've got to check the meter. I've got to drop off this set of tools, that set of tools. I get in and out of the car 13 times while I'm on the lease, and the seatbelt's just a pain in the butt to put on. Well, they don't put that seatbelt on when they got to get back up on the blacktop and run down the next lease to make that delivery. And that's where that crash occurs. And then when our troopers go to make death notification and we have to tell their loved ones, hey, I'm sorry, your husband's not coming home today. He was ejected from a motor vehicle, and the mother, wife, sister, daughter's in shock. But he always wears a seatbelt. Well, that may be true at home in the Ford Explorer, but he's not wearing it in the white F-250 out there running around on the highway. So please, please have a seatbelt policy in effect. I was at another meeting 2 weeks ago at Targa, and they brought up a good point. They had a situation with a sub of a sub, I believe it was, where there was a traffic crash. The driver had one of those devices that you can purchase on eBay or Facebook that you drop in your seatbelt latch that turns off that little chime. And guess what? He was involved in a crash, he was ejected, and the insurance company did not want to pay the death benefit because he had bypassed the seatbelt. Think about that. Your loved ones lose a family member, and now they cannot get the death benefits because that driver bypassed that seatbelt. Now, I'm sure they can fight that out in court, but remember, that attorney's going to take that portion of the death benefits for fighting that out. So that $500,000 death benefit just became $250,000 death benefit. So all to drop a seatbelt silencer in the seatbelt. So please, 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 have a company policy. I encourage that. Another big one, intersection crashes, another 12. Failed to yield right-of-way and stop signs continue to be the big one. We talked about failed to yield right-of-way. I'll use State Highway 302 as an example. State Highway 302 has the right-of-way, 866 FM 1936 T into it. 1936, 866 have the stop sign, yield sign. If you have the right-of-way on State Highway 302 and you're approaching those intersections, what can you do? Slow down, exactly. Slow down, cover the brake, take the cruise control off, drive defensively, something you've been hearing since you were 15 years old. And I say that because my daughter just turned 16 3 weeks ago, and I've got that young driver at home who I'm hammering that into. And I'm getting some more gray hairs for it too. But it's in her driver's manuals. She took the ACEable course, parent-taught version with my wife and I, and it's all in there, defensive driving. So we've been hearing it since we were kids, and it still applies now at age 40. So please, please, drive defensively. Another thing I hit on is when you're in town, JBS and 42nd, Midkiff and Wadley, wherever you are, and that light turns green, pause for a second. Don't just head out into the intersection. Make sure no one's coming through. And I know everybody's saying, well, we need more cops and we need this or that. And that is true. We do have a shortage of law enforcement. It's hard to recruit and retain people out here in West Texas, no matter what the agency is. But as drivers, we can drive defensively. Give that 5 seconds. Make sure no one else is sneaking through that red light, and then continue through the intersection. Driving defensively so often can stop these. And if you are the driver at these stop signs, look right, look left, and look left again. Wait on that traffic light. Remember, a yellow light is not go faster. Yellow light means what? Prepare to stop, slow down. The other one we have here, fail to drive single lane. I had 4 fatal crashes. That's fail to drive single lane is cop speak for the vehicles going down the nice straight road and all of a sudden just rolls off. What causes that? That's a big issue in West Texas. Fatigue is one of them. Distracted driving, overcorrecting, intoxication are usually the driving factors. So fatigue is one of the big ones, especially in the oil industry, Permian Basin. We have guys that work a lot of hours, guys and gals. When you're out there as the foreman, and you are the foreman on that location, you are the supervisor on that location, and your driver, your worker's been out there 12 hours, 14 hours, is it a good idea to send him home back to Abilene? No. This is where we as an industry need to step in. Make sure your guys and gals leaving locations are getting plenty of rest. When they're out there working 12, 14, 16-hour days and now they want to drive back home to go watch Friday Night Football. Please, please, that safety culture, once again, starts with the company. Another point to bring up, when you run off the roadway and you're in the bar ditch, do we slam on the brakes and jerk the wheel? No, that's how we roll over. Gently apply the brakes, ride it out, and get back up on the road. It's better to take out a sign, delineator post, something like that, than to slam on the brakes with the wheel. Wrong side of the roadway. That's a big one right here. 9 crashes. And folks say, how do so many people end up on the wrong side of the roadway in the Permian Basin? It happens all the time. A lot of that is aggressive driving, passing no passing zones, fatigue, and intoxication. If you want to see people absolutely lose their minds about how they drive, watch people around the frac crew. You got 5 frac trucks going somewhere, and everybody has to get around them. Take FM 1788, for example, from Andrews to Midland. I lived in Andrews for a long time, so I used to come over to Midland quite a bit. My daughter did tennis, and you see them drive like crazy around the frac crew. Everybody trying to pass 5 trucks that are 70 feet long at 90 miles an hour just to get 1 or 2 cars ahead. And take very dangerous chances with oncoming traffic. So remember, time is not money. Time is the life you have yet to live. I'll say that again. Time is not money. Time is the life you have yet to live. Let's back off a little bit out there. Let's let folks get down the road. We're all going to get there. Come on, come on, come on. All right. Fail to control speed. That was 6 crashes. That's cop speak once again for striking another vehicle from the rear. State Highway 349 is a big problem area for that. If you're familiar with State Highway 349, it runs out of Midland going up to Lubbock. State Highway 349 is now 4 lanes. It's been 4 lanes for a while, and yet we still have crashes like this out there. Predominantly, that's where they occur. That's Martin County, and you know, I've had people ask me, wow, do people just run into each other out there? I said, I'll tell you how they do it. It's because they're on the phone. It's a nice straight road, and they get complacent, and they get on the phone. And you have a lot of oil drilling. You have a lot of gas plants, and you have a lot of locations out there that are being serviced by commercial motor vehicles. They're slowing down to make a right or left-hand turn, and someone drives directly into the back of them. And guess who gets the bad rap for that? The commercial motor vehicle does. Is the commercial vehicle at fault in that instance? Absolutely not. He or she's just trying to make a turn into a cattle guard and get smacked from the rear. So what does that tell law enforcement? That driver was on the phone or distracted. And when we talk about the phone, we're just not talking about texting and driving. I was at a class, I was talking to a high school a little while back, and a young lady raised her hand and said, tell my mom not to text and drive. I said, that's awesome. And you know what my mom said? I'm not texting them on Facebook, as if that's okay. You follow that? And so when I break the ice at these high schools, when I have to go in there and break the ice, the first thing I ask them is, who in here has a driver's license? And about half the class, half the auditorium has one, because I'm talking to 10th through 12th grade. Next question I ask is, who in here texts and drives? Do you think anybody raises their hand? No, nobody raises their hand. Just like if I asked that question right now, do you think anybody here raise their hand? No, they wouldn't. But the next question I ask is, whose parents text and drive? And guess what? Boom, those hands go up. They tell on mom and dad. And I do this at every school I go to. So I know parents text and drive because your kids tell me you do. Right? Yeah. So let's set the good example for the next generation. I'm not going to stand up here and pretend to be perfect. If you brought my daughter in here and asked her that question, she'd probably say yes. I've seen my dad on the phone. That cell phone is a huge part of our lives. And I say that sincerely. That cell phone is a huge part of our lives. Everything we do is on it. Our schedules, where we have to be, the wife, daughter telling us to stop by HEB to pick up food, son's got to be at soccer practice at 6. Everything's on that phone. But just like everything is on that phone is costing us our lives. Just like everything is on that phone, our whole lives are on that phone, but that phone is costing us our lives. We have to prioritize driving when we're out there. Have to prioritize driving. That brings us into the finishing up with the distracted driving. The visual, cognitive, and manual. Those are the three big tasks that it takes to drive a vehicle. You got to see where you're going. You've got to operate it. You got to think about how you're going to get there. And it's the same thing you do when you answer a text message. You got to read it. You got to think about it. And you got to swipe up, like it, reply to it with that other little thumb. It's a divided attention. You're dividing your attention between two tasks at once. Texting, liking the Facebook post, on the Instagram, and still operating the vehicle at 70 miles an hour or faster. So that's how we're getting into some of the problems we see out there today. Give me the next slide. Other distractions. Everybody talks about the cell phone, but there's a couple more I want to hit on. I have another video. Of course, I'm time constrained here, but I have another video that shows, a company sent me, where a gentleman stopped to get a cheeseburger at a convenience store. Instead of staying parked in that convenience store parking lot to eat that cheeseburger, he gets back out on the road. He's at a red light. He's going to make a left-hand turn. And as he makes his left-hand turn, he bends down to bite into the burger. They know this because there's an inward-facing camera. And as he makes that left-hand turn, he runs over a guy in the crosswalk. Can you say cha-ching? Yeah, you're going to have to write a big check on that one. Luckily, that gentleman was okay. But once again, that company's writing a big check. So, eating and drinking, that's one distraction. Daydreaming, I think we've all been there. We've all taken off to drive somewhere, like going to Big Lake, and all of a sudden you're in Big Lake, and you're like, how did I get here? Well, you got there because you drove, you just weren't there. Personal grooming, guys like to pick on the ladies, but guys are just as bad. Look around, you got guys trimming their nose hairs, grooming their beards, you name it, picking their teeth. Yeah, I talked about nose hairs there, guys, come on now. Let's go. Let's not do it while we're driving. Pets, that's another big one. Go to any Starbucks in the morning, you will find dogs learning how to drive. There's a demographic that drives a Denali that has 3 kids, and a little Frenchie in the front seat with them, and gets a latte through the drive-thru at the Starbucks every morning. Let's keep the dog in the back seat. I say that because if you slam on the brake, where's the dog go? Goes up on the dash or down by your feet. So let's keep the dog in the back seat. And I was with my wife one time, and we were out there on Loop 250. We know where the Starbucks is right there at Midland Drive and Loop 250. You're familiar with Midland. And a lady came out, and she had a dog, a Frenchie, and a black GMC Denali, because that's the car you drive if you're in Midland. And the dog and the cup was right there, and I was like, how is she making that turn? And my wife's like, she's using her leg, you just kind of turn the wheel like that. I was like, okay, I guess that's how it's happening. Reading, that's another one. Adjusting the radio. Use of GPS, that's a big one. I was outside and I talked about GPS. GPS, the oil field survives by pin drops. We have to have pin drops out here to get where you're going, right? So let's get our pin drops before we take off down the road. Let's not do that while we're driving. Pull off, all the way off the road, not there on the yellow and white mustard mayo line right there. Get all the way off the road, get your pin drop, get it set, and get back up on the roadway. A couple of statistics about distracted driving. It claims a lot of lives. It's hard to get a firm number on that because people lie to the cops. People lie to the cops about what they were doing. Drivers talking on the phone are 4 times more likely to crash. Drivers texting are 23 times more likely to crash. And it is one of the #1 causes of teen deaths. It used to be alcohol. We made a lot of inroads into alcohol. Now it's the phone has replaced it, especially with our youth drivers. Next slide. Okay, in closing, let's make good choices out there. Does anybody have some of that in their garage? We all need it, don't we? We do. Let's have some grace out there. Remember, we don't get to choose who we share the road with. That choice is made for us. You don't get to choose who's coming at you in the other lane. You don't get to choose who you're sharing the road with. Only you can choose how you drive. You're going to cut people off. I'm going to cut people off. I'm going to pull out in front of somebody, and I'm going to make a mistake. But let's show a little grace out there. I'm going to forget my turn signal, but let's show some grace. Let's drive defensively. Let's not just jump on the horn, wave the middle finger at folks, and cause road rage incidents. Let's drive defensively. Let's make sure we all make it there safely at the end of the day. I mean that truly. Finishing up. I leave everywhere I go, I leave my audience with a challenge. And my challenge here today is I will not speed today. I will not drive tired today. I will not drive distracted today. I will not put my life or other lives in danger today. Because at the end of the day, the worst part of our job, and I know these gentlemen, ladies in front of me in uniform can say the same thing. The worst part of our job is going to make a death notification. I'd much rather work, crash in the pouring rain, freezing snow. I'd much rather fight with the drunk in the bar ditch. I'd much rather have a drunk spit on my windshield and throw up in my car than go walk up to somebody's house and tell them that their loved one is not going to be coming home. That's the hardest thing we do. So from the bottom of my heart to each one and everybody here, please take that message home to your companies. Let's be safe out there and let's all make it home at the end of the day. Thank you all very much.